The Rams start the season off with a win, but injuries are already piling up. Hello, everybody. Terry Bennett here on the Mineral Wells Football Show, brought to you by Jack Powell Ford right there in Mineral Wells. As the Coach Worrell-led team started the year off with a great victory, 54 to nothing over Polytech. Great offensive efficiency, threw for over a couple hundred yards, ran for a couple hundred yards. Defense pitched a shutout. Everything was what you would want, except for the injury situation. And I, of course, will let Coach talk about that. I don't want to talk for him when it comes to injuries and things like that. Every coach has a different way they like to either talk about it or just kind of not talk about it. Anyway, this coaching show is brought to you by Jack Powell Ford. You can find them online at jackpowellford.com. You can also find them in Mineral Wells at 1418 Southeast 1st Street. If you have any issues with your car needing parts or service, you can give them a call, 940-654-2716. Or for parts, 940-654-2712. And if you're looking for a car and you don't really want to drive out to Mineral Wells, or even if you live in Mineral Wells, you can go online, you can get pre-financed, you can even find the car you want, you can select it, and you can take it from there. That's how great this process is at Jack Powell Ford. Again, you can find them online at jackpowellford.com. All right, we're going to take a break. And when we come back, it's the head coach of the Rams, Coach Cody Worrell, right here on the Mineral Wells Football Show, brought to you by Jack Powell Ford. Here at L4 Media, we talk high school football, 4A, 3A, and 2A in Texas. We talk East Texas sports. We talk NFL, guy talk, movie, and booze. We also talk wrestling and so much more. And you can see it all on our YouTube channel at L4 Media Company. Like and subscribe. Terry Bennett back here on the Mineral Wells Football Show. Now joined by the head coach of the Rams, Coach Cody Worrell. And Coach, first off, congratulations. You start the season off with a big win, 54 to nothing. What were your thoughts on the game?
I thought we came out and played okay, man. We had some early mistakes, early on. Couldn't hold on to the football for 2 series in a row, lost 2 fumbles. But after that, had some holding penalties and just typical game one stuff that you would think of. A lot of stuff that we need to correct. But, man, I was just really pleased with the effort that our kids played at.
Offensively, it was a big play night. 4 of your passes were for touchdowns. I think y'all had over 220 yards throwing, over 200 yards rushing. You had a great balanced game plan.
Yeah, no, I thought offensively we executed really well. Quarterback threw for over 220 yards in the first half and four touchdowns, and we ended up rushing for over 300 yards on the night. And Jordan Johnson, our running back, he had a big first varsity debut, and like I said, we're really pleased with how our offense was clicking, minus the turnovers.
Defensively, you get a couple turnovers. Y'all were living in the backfield. What were your thoughts on your defense?
Again, I just thought that they played really hard. There was a couple of things, that we blown assignments here and there, and things that we can correct. But overall, I thought our effort was really, really well, and they played fast, and we had guys flying around to the football.
That playing fast, is that this program finally understanding what y'all as a coaching staff starting year 3 is wanting to do? And I know I always allude to this, but people forget that you got started late in year 1 with your all-season program. Do you finally feel that they're starting to not think too much out there and just react to what y'all teach them?
No, 100%. And, we got a new defense this year with a new defensive coordinator, transitioning to a true 4-3. And man, I'm telling you, it's our kids are having fun with it and flying around, and just getting to the football is a big key to, coaching point that Coach Wood and all of our defensive coaches have, preached all summer and into fall camp. And I think our kids are doing a good job of executing on that.
It's funny. I do the Chad Worrell show. I usually record it right before I record you. Of course, that's your dad. And we were actually talking about how in today's football, because you're facing so many different styles of offense from week to week, that the idea that you have a defense that runs a 4-3 or a 3-4 or 50 or whatever, it's almost antiquated because you're always having to kind of change things up week to week depending on who you're playing.
No, without a doubt. Just depending on what the offense is doing, you kind of have to, balance to what they're doing and adjust to them. And man, offenses are just so. I mean, in high school football, especially, you know, week to week could be, spread, air it out, and then the next week it's slot T, wing T, and we're having to pack the box and stop the run. And man, I bet our defense staff does a phenomenal job of adjusting and making those adjustments.
All right, you're 1-0. You now move on, and you'll be taking on Iowa Park. The Hawks themselves are 1-0. They beat Pampa last week in the very last minute, 28-27. You and I always have talked about this. They're a 3A Division One team, but they've been in. They're a team that's been up and down as far as class. But when you look at the film, they always seem like they're better than their record.
Oh my gosh, yeah, they don't look like a 3A Division One team when you put them on tape. Just how big they are up front. They're averaging 285 pounds and 275, 270, 285, 270, 290, 6'3", 6'3", 6 foot. They're just big kids, and they've always had big kids. And played them for a lot of years when I was at Brock. Of course, we played them last year, and every year I always joke about Iowa Park kids, and you think, oh man, that kid's a senior. You pull up the scout report from the year before and see how many seniors they lost, and some of them are big, and then they show it back on film, and they're as big, if not bigger, the next year. So, and they just, sorry, excuse me, they're just big. I mean, even their skill kids, 6'1" kids, 6'2" kids, they just look the part. They don't look like a 3A Division One team at all. They just look big. So.
Well, and they look big. And one thing I noticed, and they have a new coach, Brian Wood, and this is no knock on any coach from the past, but I got to watch some of that Pampa game. And one of the things about Iowa Park over the last, 5 to 10 years was if you kind of knocked them off schedule, they would have a hard time getting back into it. And sometimes they would get down on themselves. And in this game, they were down a lot and they kept responding. So it looks like the new coach, the program that you were installing 3 years ago, he's doing it now and it's kind of working for him.
Yeah, Coach Wood. I mean, I've known Coach Wood for a long time. With his years at Shallowater when we were at Brock and the battles that we had, and he's a really good coach, and they're a well coached team, and they, you can tell that sometimes maybe a couple of scrimmages they were, a little off pace here and there, but that's just the new system and first time live bullets, but. Last week they had it figured out, and they do a really good job. They're, like I said, they're very well coached, not only on offense but defense as well. And man, they had to stop a really good running back from Pampa. Man, that kid is good. I don't know his name, but if anybody's out west and wants to find a player to go watch, I'd say that running back for Pampa. He's the real deal, and they did a good job of containing him and stopping him.
Oh, and you and I were talking last week, off the air and on the air. We were talking about, one of the things that you were worried about going into the season, and just like every football team under 5A, depth is an issue. And without getting all the way into it, you're already having some injury issues. So as a coach, how are you going to figure that depth out?
That's a good question. I'm figuring out day by day, and we had an injury bug last week, and actually the week before that, the last scrimmage, got a couple of kids banged up. A couple of kids didn't get to play last week. Don't know if they're going to be able to play this week. Had some kids get hurt this past week against Polytech. It's just one of those things where, the cliche thing is to say the next man up, but it's a lot more than that. You got to put kids in the right spot for the betterment of the team, and moving kids around and trying to figure out what you can do to get by that week to, for your team to have the best shot of coming out with a win.
Well, and you bring up a good point. Everybody always thinks of it in terms of depth of like, in the NFL, the left tackle goes out, we'll just bring in the swing tackle, and that's all. It's one position. Mm-hmm. But a lot of times in high school, that might mean taking your best linebacker and now putting him at a defensive end because you need that more than linebacker. But in turns, it kind of weakens two positions at once.
Without a doubt. When you start moving kids around, from your starting lineup and putting them at different positions because of injuries here and injuries there, it turns into you weaken yourself at other positions. And so, but like I said, you just got to evaluate. That's what we've been doing all weekend, is trying to evaluate what lineup puts us, have the best lineup out there for offense, defense, and special teams, and kind of roll with it. And you can't really dwell on injuries. You just got to, no one else is feeling sorry for you, and that's what we've told our kids. And I had to tell our coaching staff, we got to come up with a plan and make the best out of what we have.
Here at L4 Media, we talk high school football, 4A, 3A, and 2A in Texas. We talk East Texas sports. We talk NFL, guy talk, movie, and booze. We also talk wrestling and so much more. And you can see it all on our YouTube channel at L4 Media Company. Like and subscribe.
As always, we want to thank the head coach, Coach Cody Worrell, for joining us here on the Mineral Wells Football Show, brought to you by Jack Powell Ford. And as he said, you just got to go next man up. And that's, nobody's going to feel sorry for you because you're hurt, especially a team like Iowa Park, who's on the upswing, making the playoffs last year, considered one of the favorites to make the playoffs in a very tough district this year. Nobody's going to feel sorry for you, so you're just going to have to figure it out, and I think they will. There's a lot of talent on that team. I know that depth is still a little bit of an issue, for where they want to be, but this is one of the deeper teams Mineral Wells has had in the last few years. Again, that's that process when you're rebuilding and you're starting over and you're trying to establish the foundation. Everybody thinks of the playoffs and all that, and those are great, but your first foundation is depth. And when you start getting depth, you start becoming a better team. And it's going to be a tough battle this week against the Iowa Park team that beat Pampa with a touchdown with 1:15 left, I think, or with 15 seconds left in the game, and held on to beat them. They won 28-27. That's a game last year they lost 42-28, just to get a little bit of comparison. Oddly enough, they scored the exact same amount of points. Their defense is better, which is actually kind of the case. Brian Wood's first year there, and I have been told by people that their defense is going to be better this year. So this is going to be another great test for Mineral Wells, and hopefully they can come out of it as healthy as they can be at this point. Again, I want to thank our sponsor, Jack Powell Ford. You can find him online at jackpowellford.com. You can also go visit the dealership in person at Jack Powell Ford, 1418 Southeast 1st Street in Mineral Wells. Again, if you want to get pre-finance, you can go online at Jack Powell Ford. You can even look at the whole inventory and basically pick what you want to test drive right there before you go in, saving you a ton of time when you actually get to the dealership. They're open 8:30 to 6 p.m. Monday through Friday. On Saturdays, 9 a.m. to 5:30, and then they're closed on Sunday. All right. After this week, we'll already have 2 weeks in the book, and we'll be back for the Week 3 Coaches Show, and that'll be next week right here on L4 Media.